Twebwe abanyagihugu turahakanye iyi manda yiwe.
Initially, both Hutus and Tutsis marched together.
In the beginning, journalists could cover the demonstrations normally. Then, little by little, it got much tougher. The police started firing real bullets.
Members of the opposition were hunted down in their houses and sometimes executed.
People were killed. Then there was the attempted coup, and that sounded the death knell for the independent media.
President Nkurunziza has been deposed.
From the bottom of our hearts, we would like to thank our armed forces for the bravery, courage, and determination they displayed.
Large-scale human rights violations that occurred in their immediate aftermath appear to have triggered new and extremely disturbing patterns of violations. Some of the victims of human rights violations were targeted because they were Tutsis.
We've identified at least 9 alleged sites where there are mass graves. There may be more.
It's those in power. It's the police, the army that are killing these people under Nkurunziza's protection.
From April 2015 until today, there have been very many bad things. Some people have died, but the situation is now under control. There's no more political crisis. All the institutions are in place, from the presidency down to local councils.
They come from over there. It's Burundi over there, the south of the country. I'm afraid to die because my friends who are a bit older were killed. Many were killed. That's why we fled. I left everything over there. All my ID papers. I have nothing.
Escape or die. Such is the choice faced by many Burundians who oppose President Pierre Nkurunziza's third mandate. Almost 2 years after the crisis began, tens of thousands of Burundians are still pouring into neighbouring Tanzania every month, some by boat, others on foot. This is Mabamba, a border crossing between the two countries. These fields are in Burundi.
I don't make fun of those who flee because one day I might flee. I voted for Nkurunziza not out of conviction but because we'd received death threats. Many people voted for him not because they wanted to but because they were forced to.
After 10 years in power, Nkurunziza was re-elected in July 2015. The violence that began when his controversial candidacy was announced continued long after the election. Members of the opposition, but also a few from the ruling party, were assassinated. For many Burundians, whatever their ethnic group, the only way to stay alive was to flee. This family walked all night to arrive here.
All my family had already fled. They live near here now. My problems really began last night, but we were threatened for a long time. They said that those who had family who had already left the country had no reason to stay in Burundi. They told us to leave.
The men who threatened them are the Imbonerakure. It's a Kirundi word which means those who see far. The Imbonerakure form the youth league of the ruling party, which is dominated by former Hutu rebels.
You can put your belongings over there.
The UN says the Imbonerakure are a dangerous militia.
zirababwira ati nimuvemwo au nikutinya kwanyu batubwira tuveko ati mutavuyeho turahamara ati bababwira kugwandiko au bababwiza umuntu au ugasanga amabaruwa basize kunzi yaho ku muryango ngaho yani ku muryango mwijoro ukabyuka ugiye ukugayisanga nkaho ugaca usoma ati wowe utavuyeho tayari turakwica vaho nyene vaho nitubake neza canke bakazana nk'amahera tutayatanze.
I hid to avoid the Imbonerakures checkpoints and managed to slip through. All night they patrol. If you're unlucky enough to meet the Imbonerakure, they will kill you.
Burundi is a small country with a big population. When people flee, their lands are often taken by those who force them to go.
It's the National Intelligence Service that operates the Imbonerakure. They have armed men all over the country. This system was really put in place around 2012, 2013. That's when the situation started to become very worrying.
At the Mabamba border crossing, Tanzanian authorities receive up to 200 refugees a day.
Some refugees arrive in good health. Others are ill. Some have been beaten up. And sometimes the women are pregnant. Some come for economic reasons, but most come because of the crisis.
Toyi Aberi. Bagabo Elime Elimes. Bagabo Enosu.
While we are there, a family of 7 arrives. Exhausted. They left in a hurry and took practically nothing with them.
We didn't say anything to the kids. We just said we were leaving. But even they realized we couldn't stay in a place with such problems, where our neighbors got beaten up.
According to UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, more than 315,000 people have fled since April 2015. Most of them are in Tanzania. The numbers rise steadily. 2 of Tanzania's 3 camps are already full. That day, 2 buses left for the Duta refugee camp.
If God brings me luck, I think I will have a good life.
Once they've crossed the border, Celestin and the other refugees relax.
Nous avons de sérieuses convictions.
We have strong reasons to believe that the UN Refugee Agency is exaggerating its figures, because these are organizations that rely on funding, and the bigger their figures, the more funding they receive. These figures are absolutely untrue,
sont faux, archi faux.
You have to take into account the Burundians who've already returned home. We'd like to take this opportunity to tell all Burundians who've left that they must return home so that we can all build our country together.
In April 2016, the Duta camp reached its capacity, but the scale of the influx of Burundians has forced the Tanzanian government to extend the camp's limits. Today, it is home to 85,000 refugees.
All those who don't have a bag, come in front. The others get back and take out everything you have in your pockets.
The authorities don't want Imbonerakure entering the camp, nor rebel groups forming inside it. A few weeks ago, one Burundian refugee had his throat slit.
Looking like a knife, a gun, you see?
Refugees are warned about potential dangers in the camp, such as muggings and rapes.
It could be your sister, your wife, your mother, or any woman that lives with you. If she goes out to fetch some firewood, you have to go with her to protect her.
Second important point. No one is allowed to leave the Duta camp without an authorization.
Celestin was glad to leave Burundi, but his future is bleak.
We've arrived here, but now where do we go? Where do we sleep? Where do we eat? I have no idea.
The forced displacement of people, pushing them to flee, that can count as a crime when you're charged with genocide. And today you have more than 315,000 people who've been pushed to flee by the regime in neighbouring countries. And you also have internally displaced people in Burundi. This all helps the regime's goal, which is to see all those who oppose it leave the country.
We head to another refugee camp in the region, Nyarugusu, 30 kilometers from the Burundian border. It's one of the biggest in the world. 130,000 people live here. More than half of them are Burundians. Many of those who have fled are children. How many students do you have?
117.
Laurent used to be a teacher in Bujumbura. He received death threats.
Who can tell me the name of this object in Swahili? No, that's not correct. Very good. I'm grading the students. This is their Swahili exam. The children aren't happy because they fled their country. They aren't proud to be here because living conditions aren't good. The children told me what their problems were, what pushed them to come here. Some of them are here without their parents. They are like orphans.
6,000 according to the UN. Add to that the 30 or so children who have been killed during the crisis and the hundreds who have been arbitrarily detained. This young girl has lost her parents. She's 13 and fled last year.
The reason I fled Burundi was because of the Imbonerakure. They came to attack us in our houses. I fled in the street. A man then helped me to get here. All I know is that my parents didn't support the government, but right now I don't know where they are. When I remember what happened, it really hurts. I'm so afraid.
This young boy also doesn't know where his parents are. He was taken care of by a man who had an NGO. The man was a member of the opposition.
The Imbonerakure, they didn't find the man from the NGO. They were really angry, so they killed his mother in front of us. For me, the only thing that would make me happy would be to see my parents again, to live with them. That would make me happy.
Quiconque commet des bévues, crimes.
Whoever commits a crime says he's an Imbonerakure, or a member of the ruling party. Those who are living abroad will tell you they were arrested at night by the Imbonerakure. That's absolutely untrue. I'm a former Imbonerakure. The current president is a former Imbonerakure. All the hopes of the Burundian people are pinned on the Imbonerakure Youth League, thanks to its strength, its bravery, and its patriotism.
Most of the refugees flee to 4 countries: Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda and Uganda. We drive to Kampala, the Ugandan capital, a 20-hour drive from the Tanzanian refugee camps. The Burundians who flee to Uganda say it might be further away than Rwanda, but it's cheaper, and they feel freer here.
The water we use, we come and fetch it here, every morning and every evening, because we don't have enough money to pay for access to water in our flat.
John fled Burundi in October 2015 with several other family members.
When I lift this, my body starts to hurt once again. It's as if the tortures they inflicted on me keep coming back.
He's afraid the Imbonerakure will look for him in the Ugandan capital. So he's decided to live in a village.
This is where we live. 7 members of the same family. We're cousins. 5 people sleep here and 2 there. As you can see, we do not own much.
John was an opposition supporter. He took part in the protests. He was arrested by the National Intelligence Service, known as the Documentation, and arbitrarily detained for 10 days.
They put us outside in a yard, and they took our t-shirts off. And then any policeman who wanted could hit us. They would use the butts of their rifles, sticks, or even firewood. Anything they could find. They would hit us on our joints, our ankles, so we wouldn't be able to walk and protest anymore. There was this large red shipping container, and they put us in it. Then they threw tear gas inside to make us suffer. And then they closed the container. We suffered inside it all night long. In fact, we were not considered as human beings. They beat us like we were animals.
Anyone suspected of being an opposition member or working for a human rights NGO can end up being interrogated by the National Intelligence Service all across the country. There are no arrest warrants. There is no access to lawyers.
As the crisis developed, more and more people were killed. Our monthly reports show that on average 46 people are killed every month. The reports are out there. The names are there. All the data's there.
There is a risk, once again, of an ethnic conflict. You hear certain speeches fueling ethnic hate. That is worrying.
The Great Lakes region has been racked by ethnic conflict for decades. No one has forgotten the 1994 genocide of 800,000 Tutsis in Rwanda, nor the massacre in 1972 of 100,000 Hutus in Burundi, including the current president's father. A peace deal signed in Arusha established rules that try to maintain an ethnic balance in the Burundian army between Hutus and Tutsis. We spoke to 2 Burundian soldiers in Kampala. They had been training to become part of the army's elite.
After the attacks on December the 11th and 12th, our military camp was also attacked. I was still there. They took me and threw me in jail for a week. They accused us of having taken part in the attacks. Because of my background, for them, whatever I said was not true just because I'm a Tutsi and I'm young.
I fled before that. I was afraid. I was certain they were looking for me. My name was on the list of officers who were wanted.
The first questions they would ask us were, who do you work with? Who's your leader? How is your structure organized? They tried to trick us. They said, you're still young, you can get a second chance. You just have to tell us who you're working with. They used to say Tutsis must be eliminated at a young age, when they're still at school. If we don't lock them up or kill them or make them flee, well, in 10 or 20 years they'll be colonels at the military academy. These are the ideas they were instilling in the minds of our Hutu comrades. Sometimes when they were drunk, some of our comrades would tell us this.
Before leaving us, they show us a photo of one of their old friends.
He's a Hutu, I'm a Tutsi. They have already transformed him mentally. He's afraid of me, and now I'm afraid of him.
Today, there are targeted assassinations. They target young Tutsis and former Tutsi military officers. The army used to mostly be composed of Tutsis. These officers are arrested, executed, simply because they are Tutsis. And also you can hear the Imbonerakure militia chanting that they will eliminate the Tutsis.
Il fallait parachever la révolution. Et la révolution, c'était...
Nkurunziza used to say that to finalize the revolution, the peace deal must be set aside, so that the ethnic balance criteria could be discarded, so that power could be only in the hands of Hutus, not Tutsis.
Au lieu d'avoir un pouvoir partagé avec les Tutsis. Donc, c'est-à-dire une sorte de...
A kind of revenge, because before the Tutsis used to rule, and now he said it must be just Hutus.
Il faut qu'on arrive à ce que ça soit seulement les Hutus qui dirigent.
Far away from home, Burundians are trying to rebuild their lives. They gather in places they feel safe, like this bar in Kampala, popular with refugees. Everyone in this bar fled Burundi because they were afraid of being killed. After sunset, Leonard told us his story. He belonged to the MSD, an opposition party. He was tortured for 4 days and suffered sexual abuse. A police officer helped him escape to Uganda.
I was arrested by the head of the Gihanga Brigade. It was Sunday, August 2nd, 2015. I was taken to the police station in Gihanga. And on Monday, I was transferred at around 11 a.m. to the intelligence headquarters in Bujumbura. That's when they started hitting me. That's when the violence began. They hit me all day. They kicked me in my face. They kicked my back. I was hit by Colonel Alexei. I was held in a room with 42 people. At night, we made sure 20 were sleeping and 20 remained awake. Every evening, they came to take young men. I don't know where, but they never came back. It's obvious they killed them. Every 10 years there's a crisis. I grew up during a war. I grew old during a war. I don't want to go back to my country.
It's a regime that isolates itself from the rest of the world, that's suspicious of everyone inside the country, that clashes with the Catholic Church, with civil society, the media, and its neighbours like Rwanda. What can be the future of such a regime?
I don't want Nkurunziza to die. I want him to face justice first. For without justice, there can be no peace. A country without justice cannot live in peace.
On the 12th of October 2016, the Burundian parliament voted massively in favour of a withdrawal from the International Criminal Court. 2 months later, President Nkurunziza said he may stand again for a fourth term in 2020.
A report by Nicolas, Germain and Julie Dungelhoeff, our special report then on the exiles of Burundi's crisis. You can see it again via our website france24.com. Thank you for watching and please stay with us.